Thank you very much for the privilege and absolute honor that I have to be able to meet with you today. I want to bow in your presence and say thank you for making the time. 45 minutes is quite a lot of time to be able to put out in the busy schedule of managers, senior managers, executives, very, very busy team, people within the organization. So thank you, thank you, thank you for your time, energy, and effort. Today we're going to do, and as you know, I am not doing a webinar. A webinar is where people just share ideas, and when you finish got the ideas and the ideas list, you literally don't know what to do. And I have got to the place where I'm quite sick and tired of attending webinars and seminars, because sometimes in Afrikaans there's a saying that says heeltemal naar, and I've been through that a few times, and I've just decided I love myself too much to be able to put myself through another one of those experiences. So I can promise you, with everything that's within me, it's not going to be a webinar, but it is indeed going to be a synapses. As you saw on the advert, I'm proudly associated to the Global Leadership Tribe organization. I'm proudly associated to the Institute of Coaching, the McLean Institute of the Harvard Medical School, and I work together under that with the neuroscience approach. So I'm not going to be talking to us today about normal ways of management, where we pay attention to personality styles, where we're paying attention to only formulas, but I'm going to help us and coach us. So I want you to get a piece of paper ready. And actually, in actual fact, if you can get 10 pages ready, you can do nice big drawings like I'm going to be doing on the flip chart behind me. I've decided not to do another death by PowerPoint presentation, but to rather make it very, very experiential and interactive. Hi, I'm Dr. Bill Price. I have the pleasure of being called a neuroscience of things thought maestro, among many things, which I sometimes humbly bow to and ask the question, what does it mean? I just want to do what I do best and be who I want to become best. And so allow me that opportunity. So thank you for you allowing me to be me, and I'm going to allow you to be you. But I'm here to be very, very helpful, and I'm here to interrupt your program to ask you the question around the comfort zone. Now, every organization has a comfort zone. So this comfort zone is something like culture, so we can even dare to call it culture if we want to. And so when we pay attention to culture, it's how things are done. It's formed through a whole lot of things. It's formed, first of all, by time. So time plays a role where we create this comfort zone. Convenience plays a role. Internal places where we settle in, and the comfort zone is not a bad place at all, because there are many, many people who have successful comfort zones. So that's why in our topic we're discussing what are the dangers of a successful comfort zone. So the formula for success and the formula for failure is exactly the same. When a person is successful, they are first of all focusing. So there's a sense of focus in this zone. So they are focusing on something. And not only are they focusing, they're giving energy to that focus. So where your energy flows is always to where you're focusing. And they are on the other side not focusing on certain things, and then they're adding action to it. So when you do that with sustainability and commitment, and you are focusing on it, you will have either success or failure. Depends on what you're focusing on and what you're not focusing on. So those are the two big factors. So in Calibrate, which is a very interesting neuro neuroscience process that I do with any team. We do it online, we can do it face-to-face nowadays, but I come into an organization and I ask two simple questions. The first question is, tell me about your dream, because every leader and every team does have a dream. Every company has a dream of where you're headed, and we're constantly reminded to make our dreams come true, we have to stay awake. But the tragedy is that we trudge up this mountain and we get used to it. So even although we're going upwards and upwards, now and again, we'll get a little indicator in our body that warns us through energy. Hold on a moment, there's a change in temperature or a change in pressure or less oxygen. And then we quickly just stop a moment and adapt. So within this comfort zone, there is a very natural adaptation process that happens. So we automatically adapt. It's like the story of the frog in the hot water in a pot, and they're boiling it, and eventually the frog jumps around quite a lot in the water when the water increases. But as they increase it slower and slower and slower, eventually the frog gets used to it and then dies of hypertension and dies of overheating, etc., because the body became used to it. So adaptation and becoming used to something is something that we do need to look at. So when I work with companies, it's usually about a 40-minute session. We get the whole team that's involved with the strategy. So I don't come in with a new model or new strategy. I come in with the whole goal and objective to be able to help you to manifest your strategy. I mean, damn it, you've worked a long time on your strategy. You paid attention to it. You've done all your homework. You've looked at the correlations. Your financial directors come in and put another 10% onto it from wherever. And we all believe that that's going to happen in the market all of a sudden, but there's no real heavy, deep market research that is done. And a lot of strategy nowadays is thumbsuck or click and paste. But that be as it may. The tragedy with that kind of thinking and strategy is that you're going to walk around in circles or in spirals, and eventually the spiral can either be a spiral upwards or there can be a spiral going downward, which the writer in Good to Great calls it a doom loop. And a doom loop is where we are so busy with busyness and we begin to believe our public relations, we believe our own stories, we believe our own marketing, and we have this inherent awareness at the back of our mind that we are doing good. You'll even hear it in the kind of questions that people ask. They're saying, we're doing good, right? Now, that's a manipulative question. It's a question that you need to be paying attention not to ask. And Tony is going to remind me that at the end of this session, I will be sending you I don't think a PDF document on the types of questions that you should be asking in your organization and the types of questions that you should not be asking. So there's two big things that happen in the cloudy part. So there's a cloudy part in every single comfort zone, and the cloudy part is what we would call negative stuff, what we would call, it sounds positive, but it isn't, so it's toxic. So anything that's toxic, anything that's the same, anything that says, don't bother me, don't measure me, don't worry about me. So for instance, and you'll be drawing like 10 circles, we'll be taking different kinds of criteria that calibrate measures, but there's a lot more that we do, but we do it in a neuroscience way. So we don't do measurement using analytical intelligence, arithmetic intelligence, but we use other intelligences that we already have. We use intuitive intelligence. We use insightful questioning. We use insight. We use hindsight. We use foresight. We use items like connectivity, because we have been created as a living biology with a huge amount of connection to each other and to the mission and the vision and the purpose. And that is one of the things that we need to be able to play. But we've got to realize that in this successful story, so we've got good things that are happening down here. So the good things are pushing up this line. We are paying attention to our product. We're paying attention to our value proposition. We're paying attention to the team. God forbid, we're also paying attention to the targets, etc. But then we have this reality that happens, and these are called disruptors. So a disruptor is stuff that has its purpose to dent. So that part gets a dent, that part gets a dent, that part gets a dent. So wherever we have these disruptors happening, we have indentation that takes place on our success momentum that should be going upward, but now it's going up almost in the form of pistons in a motor car. So the pistons are pushing up and it's turning the crankshaft, and the crankshaft is turning, excuse me, the wheels. So we have good things that are happening. So these are the positive criteria for our strategy. But then there's stuff that we don't always have control, like the environment and COVID. Everybody's blaming COVID. You're getting poor service from call systems, all because of COVID. And it's not COVID. If you get poor service from, how can a virus give us poor service? It's not COVID. Stop blaming COVID and stop being scared of COVID. Be respectful of it, but stop it. Just absolutely stop it. Put things in place in your office like humidifiers with mint oil and half a teaspoon of hydrogen peroxide in the water. Keep them in the offices, keep them going, let people continue to wash their hands, let them sniff the peppermint fumes, etc., because those are very normal ways. More than having just your windows open, there are other ways in which you can strengthen the immune system and pay attention to it. So here you've got your pros, there you've got your cons. And so COVID is not creating a negative effect. It's people with attitudes about COVID. It's people that go, we're still getting shitty service from the call centers. We're getting worse service from people simply because now we have to wait. We have to listen to lift music or elevator music that we don't want to listen to, simply because what the company has decided now they're going. And COVID is like, it's not as strong as it is. It's not as present as it was. And why aren't we getting back our call systems and our call centers and getting more people back to work in the essential contact points that we need to be paying attention to? So there's something for you that you need to really be aware of. So in this comfort zone, the big thing that's happening in your comfort zone is a deflection or diffusion, which is called busyness. So busyness is the great illusion that's taking place in every single growth comfort zone. So busyness is, we're so busy. But the question is, what are we busy with? Manchester United were playing Tottenham Hotspurs. At the end of the game, the fans were ecstatic about Manchester United because they had 73% ball possession. But they lost 3-0 because Tottenham said, we're not bothered about ball possession. Ball possession is this maverick game that plays, oh, we've got the ball, pass to me, pass to me. Mavericks are constantly asking, give it to me, I'll kick it in, give it to me, I'll do this, I'll do that. And the ball is going all over the place. And on 3 occasions, Tottenham Hotspur looked at it and said, we're going to kick the ball right over all this high-level use of the ball and control of the ball. We're going to kick the ball right over all that. And they set them up, and they had 3 goals in succession in that game because they played strategically. You play the ball towards the goal. That's the focus. The focus is not to be busy. Oh, we're so busy, we're all sweating. We had a good game. Yeah, you control the ball very well. What's the use of controlling the ball and you not scoring? So the name of the game in here, there are different mindsets. So there are mindsets that are in this game. So you either have a growth mindset, or you have fixed mindset. And the mindsets are very critical to measure. So a mindset that is growth is realistic. It's not positive thinking. Every cloud has a silver lining. That's trash. That's toxic positivity. And you can Google that, write that down, and read up quite a lot about toxic positivity and ask yourself the question, do I have that in my team? Am I a toxic positive leader? It's a leader that wants to deny reality, deny truth, doesn't want to be brutal with the facts, and comes up with a whole lot of damn cliches that makes everybody feel good about non-performance or not. It's not so bad, guys. We want you to go out there and enjoy the game, don't win, is what they're really saying. So imagine if the Springboks are told that all the time by every coach at every game. Don't go out there to win. We want you just to enjoy yourselves and have a good game. So why are we paying the rugby players then 40,000 Rand per game, more or less, just to have a good time? If you don't have the ball possession, and if you don't move that ball with momentum and direction towards the goalposts, you're not going to score. And so you're not going to gain ground either. So it's about ball possession. It's about moving with momentum. It's about paying attention to all these realities. So in here, you have strengths and weaknesses that are working for you and against you, and that you need to measure, because a weakness for the sales team is 61% of salespeople close the deal but never close the sale. So they close the presentation, they've done their 6-point presentation, they've now done what they've been trained to do, but they don't ask for the sale. And if you don't ask, the answer could be no, and the answer could be yes. You've got a 50% chance there, but they don't answer because of ego and because of fear and loss and anxiety and all sorts of other stuff that happens in life. So when we look at Calibrate, we understand that our growth zone, even within that, there's boring work that needs to be done. And you need to highlight what is the boring work. The boring work could be, I don't know, administration. The boring work could be, let's contact customers, God forbid. The boring work could be repetitive work. The boring work could be stuff that I don't like. So the boring work is stuff that people mostly don't like, and they renege on it. And you always understand boring work because it's always delivered late. It's not on any management agenda. And if you don't have stuff on a management agenda, you cannot measure it, and you cannot measure its execution. So what don't you have on your minutes of your meetings that you are not paying attention to and that you are not measuring? Those are the things that are going to bite you in the butt. Then there's busyness. And busyness is, let's pay attention to the formulas, let's pay attention to all the things that we're doing that is equal to the same success. So we are projecting more or less the same success as we did last year. Our financial director came in and gave us another 7%. For some reason, we're not 100% sure, but they've done a huge, massive survey, forgive me, of 5 people in the market, and they believe the whole market is like that, so therefore that's going to happen. Or busyness could be, oh, yippee, we've got a new product, so let's launch our new product, and all our hopes and dreams are on this new product. This new product is going to do anything new. It's like that anywhere. When I coach leaders in religion and in church organizations, every damn person is looking for a new program that they can present. And they think that training and programming is going to change the world for them. And it's sadly not, because we ought to realize that 80% of our business is people. So 80% of whatever we're doing is interpersonal and people orientated, and neurologically we have been programmed to connect with one another. So human connection is absolutely critical, and that's why hybrid teams are failing, because managers are not intentionally, purposefully paying attention to connection at the beginning of the meeting, in the middle of the meeting, They're not stopping meetings every 19 minutes for people to take a bit of a breather and some water and ask the questions, how are we doing? What have you heard so far? Share that with someone. They're not getting interaction with people. It's everybody just staring into a lens or putting their avatar up and is sitting in their pajamas and eating post-toasties, which you might as well throw away and eat the cardboard box, because that has far more nutrition than the post-toasties inside, for your body and your mind, of course. Then there's the challenge section of the growth zone, and very few people go into the challenges. The challenges are those new jobs, they're the new projects, they're the new things that we need to be paying attention to. But sadly, many companies in their comfort zone, that's going to kill them, is they create a new project, but they handle it the old way. So for instance, they forget the reality. A new project is like a rocket about to take off, and it uses 50% of its fuel, 50% of the fuel in any project to break this gravitational pull. Now, anywhere in the world, the gravitational pull is 9.8. So to get into outer space, where for the rest of the journey, I'm going to travel and use that 50% to do whatever I've got to do and come back and re-entry, they don't use 50%. And because of the fact that it's an ill-managed project and they don't pay attention to a breakthrough. So that line there is an intentional breakthrough. And if you don't pay attention to creating intentional breakthroughs, you will never go anywhere other than staying busy or bouncing between busy and boring in your comfort zone. For anybody to grow, so the other thing that you need to understand about a comfort zone, whether it's a successful one or one that's not succeeding, is there is no personal growth that's taking place. No, to say it again, there is no personal growth taking place in any comfort zone, whether it be successful or not. No growth whatsoever. Write it down, look at it, allow it to challenge you. Go, no, I'm okay. So coaching is a dead giveaway. If you say you are growing, could you please open your diary and show me where you've diarized something new that you have diarized in to learn? And then open up your budget and show me how much in your budget are you spending on personal growth, personal development, self-optimization. If you cannot show me the facts, then you are delusional and you are lying to yourself and to everybody around you. So a growth zone, I have to be challenged. So there's a time that I am going through a transformational process, and this next area of the growth zone is called the fear zone. Now, the fear zone, when I transition into that, is the zone of the unknown. I'm unsure of what's going to happen there. I'm unsure, excuse me, of what I might find there. The brain in the amygdala goes, oh my God, I need to survive. It begins to pump cortisol and it begins to say, you just need to survive. The brain doesn't like change. The way finances come in, they bring in a new number and it's 10% more than last, and nobody could tell you what that actually means. Going, we're going to go by another million. You need to ask the people around the table, how many of you have ever seen £1 million rand on a table? Have you seen how high it is, how wide it is, how broad it is? The volume, have you seen what that looks like? If you haven't seen it, the brain doesn't see numbers. The salesperson in the motor car industry will say, this car will give you 9.6 kilometers for every liter of petrol. They better decide to give you more in the time and age we're living in. But the brain doesn't equate that, 9.6 to 1. When will you measure that? How will you measure that? No, when I go and put on my odometer switch button down to 0 and watch 9 meters, and then it's got to be so accurate that on my dial for the fuel, it's got to go down 1 liter, but it doesn't do that. The brain doesn't understand numbers. It doesn't understand literally analysis. You've got to put propositions around it. That's why science in their research puts proposition around scientific numbers. They put meaning to numbers. If you don't put meaning and pictures to numbers, numbers mean nothing. guys, we've got to grow by 30%, we've got to grow by 15%, we can do it if we just add another 15% more energy. Your team look at you and go, hey, people, I'm glad you know what you're talking about, but we think you're talking chicken poo, because we don't even know how to measure that. Over here is we are in fear. We are in the world of unknown, and the only way you transition from a growth zone into the next growth phase, because you have to go through the fear zone of the unknown in this VUCA world, and then you have to make another transition to go into this growth zone. Now, this growth zone, you find some of it in here, but when you create a new different growth zone, you are growing a brand new growth zone, and you're changing this black circle here into a green circle, which eventually transports some of this stuff into there. It transports, of course, the busyness of sameness. It transports the same boringness goes in there, but the challenge is greater. So this becomes less, so your boring becomes less, your busy becomes less in here, but the capacity to grow, because you're paying attention to new projects. It could be a new product that you're launching, yes, and that's a new project. But the question is, now we're looking for new customers. And the challenge is we're not measuring the customers that we're losing in the process, because we're only focusing on people that will possibly buy this brand new product. So to be in this phase of growth, you've got to give yourself self-permission with every challenge. So therefore, you need to have an awareness of agility. You need to be aware, and aware simply means be wide awake of what's happening. The tragedy that we have with when I go to a doctor and I go to the doctor, I'm going, I've got a cough and a sore throat. I automatically zoom his thinking onto my cough and sore throat. So he pulls out his stethoscope, puts it on my chest, it's cold. I go, because it's cold. And then he says, yeah, there it is, there's the trouble. You've got this in your lungs, etc., etc. Or you've got COVID, and that's also one of the excuses that are now being used in the medical world. Anything is COVID, and so we're now paying attention to the reality, and so we guide the doctor and we put them into a mindset. So we put a tunnel vision. Now he's just focusing on throat and he's focusing on chest. But the whole body is integrated. We are holistically, biologically connected. And the question to ask is, it could be anything else other than just a full throat or a bit of a cough. And they don't pay attention to that. We walk out there with a prescription for the two things that we told the doctor about, and we're paying the doctor for diagnosing us in the way that we gave him all the symptoms and her all the symptoms. And it's like, okay, so, but luckily there aren't, most of the doctors are there, but there are a few that don't pay attention just to that. Because the fact that you need to be conscious in this world of work. Conscious simply means that I'm more than aware. I'm scanning, I'm constantly scanning what's happening within this bubble of my company. And then I am connected to a beautiful, powerful intelligence that's within me, which is called intuition. So now let's start measuring some of the things that happen in our new comfort zone. So here's our comfort zone. And here I would like us to calibrate your team. So how many ever team you are leading, I'd like you just to draw them in. So how many of your team are, who are they? For me, it's my social media team. For me, it's my marketing team, my advertising team. So there's always a team. You whenever you see a tortoise balancing high on top of a telephone pole, you need to come to one conclusion, and that is it never got there by itself. So what do we measure by the team? Ladies and gentlemen, we always measure the weakest link. So I want you now in your drawing to identify which one of these is a weak link, and you simply just draw a little bit of eternity sign. So that one's a bit of a weak link, that one's a bit of a weak link. And sometimes the team in certain instances, so in that instance, my team go into their weak response. So it's when they're faced with a new challenge, they display their weakness rather than their strengths. So what we need to do is ask a few questions around our team. The first thing is, are you managing your weak chains in the chain of your team? Because it's the weak chains that will destroy the team. Don't pay attention to the strong people in your team only. There you come alongside them, you empower them, but the weak people are the people that you've got to be coming alongside with mentoring and coaching and spending time, adding value, making sure that they, and the whole role of all of this here is self-responsibility. So here we would calibrate and we would measure what is called world-class teamness. And here we would look at the positive facts of team and the negative facts of team. So that's what we would measure in calibrate. The other thing that we want him to pay attention in our team is the whole team paying attention to our magnetic north? So on your piece of paper, decide to draw where's your magnetic north. Generally, where are you headed, where you say your target is? So I'm going to say, there's my target there. And so my magnetic north is there. So everybody needs to be aligned that way. But what am I finding? I'm finding this team member, they focusing on that. This team member are doing that and some of that. Sometimes a little bit of that. This team member is strong because they are aligned. This team member is strong because they are aligned. This team member is strong because they are aligned. So you need to look at direction where your team are headed. And the other thing that you need to pay attention to, so if these are the issues that I'm facing in my team, if I had to have a conversation, here's a coaching moment, if I had a conversation here with team member A, what are the 5 things that I will have a conversation with this team member to realign them? So we want them to adjust. We want them to align. And we want them to add value. So who in my team, that's a conversation I must have with that. This one, the 5 things that I need to talk about this person are those 5 things. And then the question is, when do you diarize to have that conversation? And what are the 5 things that you have to have with your whole team around this particular area, because that's affecting the other reality. The other thing that's important in within the story, is going to get a bit messy now, is momentum. So the momentum is the pacing, the timing of things. So it's the rhythm. So in your growth zone that you need to calibrate, and this is something that we also help measure, and that is, so when we are calibrating, we are paying attention to literally measuring. So here's your growth zone. You've got your team members that are within this particular team they're paying attention to. So the growth zone, we of course measure their mindsets. We measure their energy. We measure their focus. We measure their meaning. We measure their connectedness. Are they connected or not? And we're also measuring, all of this here is given away by what are their rituals? What are their habits? Which equal behavior. So behavior is always the dead giveaway. So what are the rituals? What are the habits that are focusing, we need to focus our attention on, that creates this kind of behavior? And then of course the behavior will create results for us. And the results are always a dead giveaway in terms of what are the habits and rituals, what's the momentum, and what's the direction. together with the internal energy. So we don't talk about passion in people, we talk about their internal energy. The other part in Calibrate that's important that many strategies do not measure, so in calibration of your comfort zone, and help me now, I'm going to try and draw it. So here is Citogalis, the ship, and it is in Antarctica, and they are searching for that expedition ship that they found, and trust us, only South Africans could have found it. And so this ship is now going in that direction. The captain over here on this ship, so there's the captain, he or she is now paying attention to, on the deck, all sorts of things. They're looking at all sorts of dials, have they got enough fuel, etc., etc. But what was interesting was that one of the people that were on board was a professor of mechanical engineering, and she studies pressure and movement and sound. And what she did was she attached little attachments to the hull of the ship on the inside, and at the whole time she was measuring a few things that nobody was measuring to date in any of the trips to Antarctica, and that was she was measuring what was the pressure. So this ice over here is putting so much pressure, that ice is putting so much pressure. So the thicker the ice, so at the back there'll be less pressure because you've already made the breakthrough, but the most pressure is over here. So that's where the most pressure is happening. Why? Because this is the breakthrough. So what are you doing to measure the pressure that's happening on your team, in your team? So there are internal pressures, there's home issues, there's family issues. The wife doesn't love them anymore, the husband doesn't like her anymore, they don't enjoy being together anymore, they don't enjoy selling anymore, it's become a drudgery. So what are the pressures? And I'd like you to take some time to highlight about 8 pressures that you are not measuring. So these are things that you've got to be aware of that you are not measuring. And this pressure will bend your boat. It'll bite you in the butt. It will create poppets, it'll cause rivets to pop out, and then you're stuck. Then you're going to be the next boat and ship that people are going to be looking for. So what is the pressure that is happening? The economic pressure, the government law pressure, the income tax pressure, the financial formulas that you are not using, because that's another pressure. So what are some of the pressures that you are measuring and not measuring in your team? The personal attitude, the personal energy of people, their mindsets, their objectivity, their sense of reality, their wanting, how much do they want to win? Is that all, are you paying attention to that? And of course you measure that by another very, very inventive ways that has to be in any comfort zone, and that is quality questions. I will be, and Tony's going to remind me, sending you a list of questions that we're going to send your way that you need to be asking. And the questions here need to be incisive questions. You are never, ever, ever going to use this question. Why? And that within itself is a lecture, because the brain doesn't understand why. You must convert all your why questions into what, when, where, who, and how. So instead of asking, why did things go wrong? Because the moment you ask the question why, the brain goes into debate, because it's a pie-sized question. It goes to fabricate information, so it moves into lying and creativity. So you rather change the question, go, what 4 things are we not focusing on? Add a number to it. Don't go, what 15? So don't go more than 5 or 6 in your numbering. Change it every now and again. When we pay attention to the following 3 things, what do we think is going to happen? Who paid attention to and who didn't pay attention to? How come this happened instead of why? So incisive quality questions are critical to causing us to be alert, aware, and awake in our comfort zone as we continue to calibrate that comfort zone. So we continue with calibration, and I'm coming to a close. We're now going to calibrate in this circle a few other things. So the first thing that we need to calibrate is the cutting edge of our arrow. So our arrow over here, so here's leadership, there's management, there's the team, but here is marketing and here is sales. So, and they're moving into this thing called customers. So how effective is marketing and how effective is sales? Now, it's a fallacy, and you mustn't allow your marketing team to tell you that ROI cannot be measured because marketing only does awareness, and how do you measure awareness? There's far more research. Business life has moved on, ladies and gentlemen, and your marketing team can no longer hide behind. They have to produce ROI. Has to be proportional to sales. And if the marketing is doing a great job, sales will be able to do a better job based on what marketing is doing. So in neuroscience, we measure marketing teams, advertising teams, sales teams on whether they are speaking the 8 brain languages. So does the advert contain visual, and what kind of visual? Is it visible? Is it visual? Is it auditory? What kind of words are you using? Are you using inviting words? Are you using words that entice? So there's a whole science, and we train marketing and sales teams in neuroscience marketing and neuroscience selling to help their customers. And then the other thing about customers in terms of our growth and calibration is, are you using a customer relationship management system? If you are, you have my deepest sympathies, because it's not measuring what needs to be measured. A company had 4 projects, send them CRM feedback, and they gave them all 89%. Everyone was clapping hands saying it was wonderful. And then all 4 of those companies sent a letter saying, excuse me, when the contract is finished this year, we're no longer continuing a contract with you. How can you do that? You've given us 80 plus. And then they sent me in, and I did what is called a RET index, and it is a person-to-person interview that helped me to understand and unpack why 84% was a failure rate, and what the company was not paying attention to. So what is your sales team and marketing doing, and what are they not doing? And are your customers, are you still calling your customers dear valued customer? I said to Absa Bank in 24-point email reply, dear valued customer, would you please think of this product? I wrote back with 24 points, and I made sure that they read it, going, I'm not dear valued customer. I've got a name. You figured me flipping 4 times. You know all my names, all my ID numbers. You know how many times I go to the toilet. You know everything about me in the whole FICA process. So for goodness sake, stop calling me that stupid name of dear valued customer. And by the way, I'm not a valued customer at all. I'm only valued when I pay my account, because if I'm 72 cents overdraft, you let me know about that. And the final thing that we need to be measuring is the strategy itself. So we pay attention to asking the question, are we looking at what is critical and what is not critical? So the strategy itself, and there's no way that we could have concluded this in 45 minutes, but the strategy itself has to be measured, and its effectiveness, its impact, its value. And so these are some of the criteria that we need to be paying attention to. And these are things, if you're paying attention to them, you are working well within your comfort zone. If you're not paying attention to them, they're going to bite you, they're going to crush you, And like most companies, and let me finish with this, survey was done amongst large franchise companies in South Africa. The 218 manual was taken, and they were given opportunity to go and search for everyone's website. And about 34% of the people, their addresses had disappeared off the internet since 2018. So 34% of big, large franchises disappeared off the planet, off South Africa landscape for whatever reason. If you haven't built sustainability and creativity into your strategy, you will possibly be one of those companies who will no longer exist within the next 5 to 7 years. And don't think because you're big that that can't happen. So I want to challenge you and encourage you, make use of our service to come alongside you and spend some income, spend some time with your team so that we can calibrate your strategy to help you to realign and really help you to make the best of the kind of business that you are dreaming to be in your lifetime. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks. That was once again insightful, interesting. I have a question. I know we don't have much time. At one point, you mentioned growth zones, and that we need to, if I understand it correctly, look out for growth zones. Is it possible to have growth zone overload, where we put up so many growth zones that we lose focus?
Yes, so actually everything, Tony, falls into one growth zone. So you have several, that's what I'm saying. If I go back to this one, just to answer it quickly, you look at the area that was boring, then the area where there's busyness, and then there's the area of growth and growth and challenge. And in there, you would put your 3 or 4 other growth zones. So you have one growth zone, and then you have smaller projects that fall within them, but it's only one growth zone, and then you have smaller projects. So do not make the mistake of calling a project a growth zone, but it is definitely an area in which you need to grow. So it would be defined as a space of growth, but it was always within the larger picture of the large growth zone that I've been presenting today.